an op-ed published anonymously. It says, "I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. I work for the president, but like-minded colleagues and I have vowed to thwart parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations." So this isn't a Democrat, Greg, who's come out and says, you know, I'm a Bernie bro and I'm mole. This is I guess a Republican who wants the administration to succeed. They want a strong military. They want tax cuts. They want deregulation. But because of the president's character, because of the president's style and ideology and the way he kind of changes things, and they say his immorality,
right,
they are not carrying out directives, and he says many officials and appointees believe this same way, and they're protecting the country from Trump like he's a child.
All right, there's 2 points to make here, one that's very specific and one that's general. In this editorial, we want the administration to succeed, they say, because he's already made America safer and more prosperous. What more do you want than that? Because you don't like his personality? We have already made America safer and more prosperous. Yeah. So what else do you want? You just proved his deep state, you moron. All right, so here's what the greater thing. I've been a boss. I understand how people talk about bosses. Your bosses are never normal. They're mercurial, they're demanding, they're often infantile.
Except our boss. So I believe it's one of the greatest bosses in American history.
Here's the point. And I would extend this to Woodward's book as well. Let's say you had cabbage for lunch, Jesse, and I said, you're going to regret that. Woodward would write, Greg Gutfeld just threatened Jesse Waters. The fact is, if you follow somebody around on their behavior, and let's say, this is Bob Woodward describing my day. He just insulted Dana Perino's dog, an animal that she loves dearly. And then he made a joke about her height, which I imagine she would be sensitive to because she didn't respond. She seemed shocked by it. Then he yelled at the producers about a segment. Then he demanded a cough drop from the floor director. And then he started talking to himself and singing about food. I have described my afternoon. But the thing is, because somebody like Woodward in the New York Times takes these things literal, and not in context about how a person is, how a boss is. They are completely clueless. Each one of us could have this treatment done by somebody who takes stark, literal interpretations of behavior that is out of context. Woodward is a stenographer. He is not a great journalist. Let's be clear.
Well, let me just say, I think he is a great journalist. And I think that
he doesn't get people. Juan, he doesn't get people. If I insulted you, he would write as though I did something horrible to you instead of if it was a joke.
Well, that would be wrong. In that case, he'd be wrong because he lacked context. Yeah. But I don't think that's generally the case with Woodward. I think he's a pretty good reporter. I think he's a very good reporter. But second thing to say is the piece that was written anonymously in the Times is written by somebody who works for Trump. And
who also leaks to the Times.
I don't mind, but I'm just saying it's written by a Trump person.
A senior official who they know well, a person leaking to the New York Times.
Okay, but my point to you, Greg, is that if you look at Unhinged, right, which is the Omarosa book, you look at the Michael Wolff book, Fear and Fury, right, this seems to be, from someone with more credibility, the same story, the same kind of behavior. Here, this is the anonymous guy saying, we're doing what we can to preserve our democratic institution while thwarting Mr. Trump's misguided impulses. And talks about this is not deep state. He says it's steady state.
I know, that's
right. Well, he's taken it upon himself to say, as an unelected person, that the will of the American people doesn't matter. Because even though they elected President Trump to be the commander-in-chief, to be the chief executive, and to do the things that he campaigned on and follow through on his promises, I have elevated myself above that, above the commander-in-chief and above the American people in this democracy, and I'm the adult in the room, and I'm going to do what I think is necessary for the country instead of what the commander-in-chief believes is necessary for the country. This is what that op-ed says.
Let me ask you a question.
I don't know what's going on in this administration, but that's kind of scary.
Well, not to me, but let me ask you a question.
Well, not to you, because it helps you.
No, it does not. You think that, look, I'm an American. I want the best for the country. Trump is my president.
Well, I believe that
but I got to ask you a question.
For the country too.
When Trump behaves in this way, you don't have any fear.
Look, I think, and listen, I'm not going to speak for the president, but the president is obviously unorthodox. He's shoots from the hip, And I believe a lot of people in that
when he lies to
administration
you,
are not used to that person as the president.
He's the boss.
I'm going to defer to Dana on this because she worked in White House, but I think the larger question is whether people working for an administration and leaking out pieces of information and publishing anonymous op-eds is really good for the country. And there are serious questions.
React to this thing here?
Well, and there are serious questions about the New York Times publishing this because the Society of Professional Journalists has a very long code. They say avoid lurid curiosity. There's all kinds of things you're supposed to avoid. Their explanation for publishing an anonymous op-ed is pretty thin when it comes to the justification for this. It used to be that you use anonymous sources very sparingly because you had to make sure that the information was reliable and that people understood where it was coming from to have the broader context. They're treating everybody who happens to be against Trump like a whistleblower, and it's damaging to people who actually want to come forward and have those protections to root out real corruption in the government, because this op-ed wasn't published to expose some kind of new revelation about Trump's behavior. It was published because the New York Times agrees with it.
But there was no such
like, why does this person need protection to protect their jobs?
The president did address it. We didn't catch all of it. Let's listen to what he had to say, and then Dana can react.
Okay.
I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration.
Hey, I asked the sheriffs, can you imagine this? We have somebody in what I call the failing New York Times that's talking about he's part of the resistance within the Trump administration. This is what we have to deal with. And, the dishonest media, because you people deal with it as well as I do. But it's really a disgrace. I will say this.
Yeah, it's about the Trump administration and the media, the story.
I think that whoever wrote this is being incredibly self-indulgent. If you have the privilege to be a political appointee at a senior level in the White House, then you have a moral responsibility and a duty of conscience to resign your post if you disagree. You should not be lapping up the benefits of being a senior administration official. No doubt, while scouting for lucrative opportunities for when you leave your post.
Who do you think it is?
I don't know. At the same time, they are preening in the mirror, and they have this ability to hide behind the credibility of the New York Times. I believe this is real. Something is a little suspicious to me about this. It has been reported for the past 3 weeks that the White House has been grappling with how to deal with this Woodward book. What are they going to do with it? And I don't. They seem that the White House apparently was surprised that this was coming out. I don't know who it is. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. But I would say that if you are this person, you really should resign tonight.